This is day 12, I think, of curing bipolar disorder 1 with a ketogenic diet and other behavioral changes. Um, so today, it's interesting. I I made a brisket yesterday, and I've found that the meals where I've just eaten a pile of brisket, afterwards I feel it's hard to describe, but I feel cleaner. I don't feel as inflamed as I might, and I feel just like I don't have some massive crash afterwards. And I'm like, okay, there's something interesting here. Maybe I need to keep like I don't think I need to go on like an all meat diet or whatever, but it's like a good sign to I don't know, maybe like focus on the meat and vegetables like the ketogenic diet says. And then today this was reinforced by the fact that today I had like 2 slices of pizza for the first time since I started this process. And it like took me out. I had to nap a couple hours afterwards. I felt like this super fuzzy feeling in my head, like it just created a bunch of static in the front of my head. And yeah, I feel like my habits this week have been off. I've actually been distracted. Last night I spent a lot of time on YouTube for the first time since I started this process, and I feel like I've been distracted in different ways like I haven't been. And it seems to be that there's like set on by some stress at work. But then it seems to have been triggered by being on trying dating apps, and these dating apps had me on my work phone. Like my regular phone is a flip phone. What I film this on is a work phone, and I don't like the screens of a cell phone. But yeah, it seemed to open up this shush. It seemed to open up these floodgates of like being distracted in different ways like I hadn't been lately. And stop. And yeah, like today I had planned to go do this like volunteering thing at my church, and I got anxious about it, and I backed out on it. But what I did do is I went to the two-stepping venue, this dance hall, and they had two-step classes tonight. I got there. I didn't feel like I had the bravery to actually go to the class, but I got there, I sat on the sidelines, I watched the class take place. I stayed there for maybe a half hour, and I went home. I was like, that's what I have. And I think a couple of things. I think what's hard about some of this when I tell people about it is that they look at me and like last night, I'm the guy who gets a bunch of my friends together and we go climbing, or I'm the guy who hosts parties, and I'm a outgoing, charismatic guy sometimes. But then there are these scenarios where it's like it it doesn't make sense how nervous I get. Like, how do I and how do the people around me reconcile the difference between this guy who is like so open and brave socially in other ways, and I've packed my apartment with 30 plus people for some of these parties that I host, and then I'm like so scared to just go volunteer at the church I've been going to for a year and a half. And when I explain to people, uh, they don't understand. It's not linear. It's not a Python script. It's not if, then, therefore, this statements. It's not black and white. It's not logical. And I don't agree with some of the defeatist mentality that the psychiatric industry has about this being like a permanent brain thing. Like brain chemistry is off permanently and there's no way to change that. I don't agree with that. But there is still the fact that there is a cluster of symptoms that I experience, and I have to make some changes to change them. And like I might look normal and I might behave normally, and I might even behave in a way that's like wildly confident at times, and I feel that sometimes. But I think it's hard for people to understand some of the massive swings that come from experiencing bipolar disorder. And so it comes with a lot of unsolicited advice, a lot of people just saying like, just get over it, all this kind of stuff. And it just doesn't work like that. What I'm facing is the hypothesis of all of this whole process is that what I'm facing is a solvable problem, but it is a problem to solve nevertheless. And a lot of it has been by my therapeutic work, you know, a psychiatrist deals with the brain and a therapist deals with the mind. And I hadn't made that distinction until literally tonight when I was at the dance hall in the parking lot, and I was thinking about going inside, but I got nervous and I started walking towards the Cabela's nearby. And I asked myself, I was like, what is it exactly that's making me so disproportionately nervous for something like this, of going to a dance hall two-stepping class, when I look and I see objectively there's guys who are not even as good at two-stepping as I am, or they're just kind of like nervous or don't even know that they're so nervous in this situation that they don't even like want to put their hand on the girl. And I feel that same way, but I see other guys doing that and I'm like, dude, I'm better off than this guy, yet I'm still nervous. And up until now, trying to answer that question, like, why am I so nervous, has always gone to, you know, what's happened in my past, or these seemingly deep questions about like my own experience and my relationship with my mom or whatever else. But they're all focused on the mind. And what I realize is that it's actually not going to the full depth. It's not like, why does this make me disproportionately nervous? It's more like, why sometimes is my tolerance for nerves so much lower than other times? I think it's more like that. And I think it is a biological question at this point. And like the psychological... Okay, the phone ran out of storage, but what I was saying is that the psychological part of some of these anxieties or some of these fears that I have socially and otherwise can only go so far. Like, there's a limit, and it's possible that I've reached the limit. The same way that when I started therapy because I'd reached a limit of what I could do to understand my mind, or to understand these, like, my experiences in the past as they relate to the present, and how it's like leading to self-sabotaging behaviors, all this kind of stuff. I reached the limit of what I could do with that on my own, and I had to go to therapy, or I chose to go to therapy in order to have a outside perspective, or have somebody to point out things that I couldn't see myself. You can't read the label when you're inside the jar. But now it's possible that I've reached the limit with that therapeutic process, and it's time to move on to something else. So I'm considering stopping therapy and then finding a metabolic focused psychiatrist, because as I've seen from really concrete observations in the last couple of weeks of doing this process, my tolerance for bravery and my tolerance for fear and anxiety and all this kind of stuff it doesn't fluctuate randomly based on emotional triggers. They seem to fluctuate in concordance with biological choices that I make. And that process, in the therapeutic setting, I think that process has been backwards. It's like, I am eating this garbage. I'm eating a bunch of donuts after yoga class or something because I'm trying to sabotage something. Why do you want to eat the donuts? It's like, no. I think if instead we focus on not triggering those self-sabotaging and negative mindsets, those mind states, with the food itself, that's the triggering action. It's the other way around. I don't know if I'm articulating it well, but it's still just coming into focus. Anyway, today, I did some editing of my book for the first time in a while, and I went to yoga, and I went two-stepping, and I did these good things. I did not go to the church volunteer thing. I'm going to go another time. I maxed out what I was able to do bravery-wise, but I just felt like clogged up in my head all day. So today, 6.4 out of 10. If 10 is, I wish every day was like this, and 0 is, can't live like this anymore. See you next time.